Hey everyone, it's the 26th of January 2017 in Gatineau, Quebec, which is right beside Ottawa, Ontario. So basically the same place as last interview. But I'm here with Guillemette.
Yeah, Dan Guillemette.
Yeah, and this is Evolution Gatineau.
Yeah, it's actually Evolution headquarters.
Yes, yeah. And so thank you for having me here. It's been awesome.
I'm really happy to have you. Hope you had fun.
I did. So Dan and I met during the holidays when I was in Ottawa when I was interviewing Steve Burgess, and I said I was going to be around the area in the next few weeks, and here I am. So again, thanks for having me. So let's start with your martial arts background. So how do you get started into martial arts?
I had too much energy as a kid, so when I was 6, my parents put me in judo.
Oh.
And by the time I was 14, I already had my 13th boxing match. We moved here about a year later to the Ottawa area, actually, and I started, a couple of years after that, started in Taekwondo, then kickboxing, Japanese jiu-jitsu, and one of the styles of Japanese jiu-jitsu that we did an awful lot of ground. Mm-hmm. And of course, when the UFC came along, I was already a black belt in that style of jiu-jitsu, and I was really interested in continuing with that, so I got involved with Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Nice.
And I've been doing it ever since. And out of all the martial arts that I've done, I think it's probably the one that I love the most.
Awesome.
I find it to be the most technical, and as I get older, one that I feel that I'll be able to do for another 40 years. So. This location you're just saying is the HQ. So how long have you been at this location? So I guess it'll be 10 years in August.
Okay.
So we're in our 9th year, or beginning of the 10th.
Nice. Yeah, because like when I came in, I could tell it's been around. I was talking with Ryan from at Team Ronin. He was saying it's an awesome club and it's been here for a while, right? And he was kind of telling me a bit of the history of it. And how it's kind of funny because it's so perfect. You have huge mats for the judo and jiu-jitsu side here. Then you have the MMA side on the other mats.
Yeah, the MMA and the Muay Thai.
Yeah.
And we have a third room with the gym. I don't know if you got a chance to see that as well.
I haven't seen it, but I've heard. Yeah. But it's kind of in a hidden location. It's kind of like a hidden gem, right?
Yeah.
Or gym. Yeah. So I see you're also affiliated with TriStar.
Yes.
So how did that come around?
So Firas was looking on expanding the TriStar, and through one of my partners for the hybrid promotions, we were introduced, and just kind of built from there. So he was looking for a good representative that had a specialty in at least one area. And one of our specialties is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. We've been doing this for a long time, and I fought quite a bit in amateur MMA and one of the pro fights before I was forced to retire from a neck injury. Just love the sport, and we wanted to give people the opportunity to go very far. So we've made a point of going out and getting all the best coaches in the area, and we're trying to make it a world-class facility. The idea here isn't, I'm not trying to make a fortune on the students' backs, so I'm trying to create a facility that we can make world champions in every sport that we do. So we've got a big judo team. We made the second biggest floating surface in Quebec, so we spent a small fortune on that, but I think we'll save a lot of people's body over time, so that when they do a throw, essentially when they land, it's absorbed over about a 15-foot perimeter. Yeah. So it's almost like landing on a cushion, yet it's hard enough that we can work wrestling, judo, standing up, and still have a lot of support.
Yeah, I was noticing that actually. I was really liking the mats here with that floating floor. It's not often that I run into one, so I appreciate it. I like them. I was actually one thing I was noticing is that you kind of achieved a very hard to achieve thing that a lot of clubs, when they do MMA and they do jiu-jitsu and judo, there's always kind of like one avenue that takes the others. But you have like a good judo club and a good jiu-jitsu club and a good MMA club, which is, you know, very seldom that I see such a, you know, all three avenues really represented really strongly.
I think we did something different than what a lot of people do. I think a lot of times in jiu-jitsu we're always saying that one of the things you need to get rid of first to get good at it is getting rid of your ego, and it's pretty much impossible to get rid of your ego, but at least lower it enough to know that you don't know everything. So even though I have a good background, I got to my brown belt in judo, but for the judo instructors, we went out and got people that specialized in judo. So we have many really, really good judo instructors who are far better than I am. I did 6 years of boxing, 7 years of kickboxing, but our striking instructors formed 35 world champions. The MMA instructor is a younger guy who can get on the mat and really train with the guy. He was one of the guys who was teaching at TriStar in Montreal as well.
Nice.
Phenomenal ground guy, good wrestling. He's good at putting everything together, very intelligent. Vince is phenomenal as an MMA coach. One of my black belts, Chris, teaches the night classes, and I think having a variety of different black belts teaching is good as well. We all have a bunch of different body types and like to do different games, and I think being able to see different versions of how to do things, I think is important for up-and-coming martial artists. So it's not, I had somebody mention when they saw all the different martial arts that we showed, it's like, yeah, I wasn't sure about going to your school because, you know, usually this type of school, you have one guy who tries to teach everything and you're just absolutely not good at anything.
The jack of all trades.
No, so we have specialists that teach everything, and our MMA coach has enough experience to bring everything together and kind of take out things that don't work quite as well in MMA and just focus on strong game plans. So it allows us to be strong in every area.
Yeah, and that's amazing. Because I mean I've been in some places where they'll do a judo class, but it's just the, you know, judo for BJJ kind of class, right? So it's really just working a select throws for competition rather than, you know, actually doing judo for judo competitions, right? And same with MMA, where, you know, we have one of the senior belts who's really into kickboxing and wants to put it all together into an MMA club, but really isn't an MMA club, like with experienced coaches from MMA, right? So yeah, it's really cool to see all this here. So when you're teaching, when you're running the club, I guess you're looking at these aspects for different tournaments, right? So I know there's a tournament coming up this weekend. So when that comes, do you start like kind of pushing those guys that are going to compete into kind of cross-training with those different avenues, like doing some judo classes, or? I try
and convince most of our BJJ guys to take the judo classes. A lot of people are a little bit like myself. We're a little bit older. We've accumulated some injuries, and the judo's a little bit harder because of the higher impact, whereas the BJJ, we kind of, usually the mats are a little bit more full, so standing up doesn't happen as often in a regular BJJ class. So a lot of the older guys like myself, we tend to stick more with the BJJ. But I try and get people to cross-train as much as possible, because if you wrestle, if you do judo, and you do BJJ, maybe even Sambo, the more grappling arts you're exposed to, the better grappler you're going to end up being. Some martial arts, over time, are removing things that you're allowed to do, and I think that makes your art weaker. I think we need to find safer ways to keep those things in. Not have them completely removed, because I think you're weakening the art if people aren't exposed to these things. We just have to somehow find a safer way to allow them to get exposed to these things.
When I was in Ottawa talking with Steve, he was talking about that, with the weaknesses of some of the arts. Like you find a lot of BJJ clubs that are really working for competition, kind of, you know, the modern jiu-jitsu, whatever, guard pulling or just starting, you know, jumping in the guard or whatever, rather than actually working on takedowns, right? well, if you pull guard, you can't be taken down, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Rather than work on that area, that weakness, and build that up, right? And same with some, judo clubs don't work Newaza, and as we've seen this past Olympics, that Newaza is making it back.
Yeah, for sure. They complete each other.
Yeah, really do.
And I think the same thing. I think there used to be a lot more Newaza in judo, and because of the Olympic rules, they've shifted away from it. Mm-hmm. So I think if we can somehow merge those two arts back together to make it more complete, I think both sides will benefit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love watching a match that has a great takedown and has great work on the ground. That was actually when I was trying to explain it years ago to friends who'd never watched judo.
Yeah.
And they knew what I did, but their only real experience was watching like MMA, UFC, and they're like, so they're on the ground. Why isn't he punching them? There's no strikes in judo. It's like, well, why isn't he armbarring them? I'm like, well, it's
got to get to a position to do it from.
Yeah. There's not really a lot of, there are not a lot of with the restrictions. There's not a lot of time or for it, right?
They don't have a lot of time to set stuff up. That's why even when a lot of the judo guys from our club roll with their jiu-jitsu guys, if they're not used to rolling with jiu-jitsu guys, they're a lot more aggressive and a lot more explosive because they're used to not having a lot of time. They have to show progress all the time. They don't have time to set stuff up. Mm-hmm. And I think the advantage that jiu-jitsu has on the ground, because we have so much time to work on the ground, we can take the time to finesse things, to slowly set them up. Mm-hmm. If we're not in danger, we don't even have to do anything. We can slowly, wait until they start doing something and take advantage of the situation.
Yeah.
And then we do some stand-up stuff with the judo guys, and then we get thrown all over the place and realize that we're not quite as good as we thought as well. So it's a nice mix. Being able to cross-train, I think, is really important.
Yeah, I like even me who I'm not even much for competing. I'm just like I guess one of the many martial arts geeks out there or nerds that loves learning more, right? I can't say I'm a big fan of getting thrown a lot, but the entries and just knowing this out there and working with that, right, is is good to know. Other than what are my options? Well, I can just grab hold and pull down, and it's like, well, I don't really want to be on the ground, on the bottom, starting. Yeah.
Why not put gravity on your side and be on top?
Yeah. So we're one of the classes earlier this week. You're talking about doing seminars.
Yes.
You've been traveling a lot, doing seminars lately.
Yeah, I've got one coming up next weekend in Buffalo.
Okay.
Earlier this year, I was in Austria and also in Germany.
Nice.
And Glenn, one of the black belts from Sweden, was at the one in Germany. It looks like we'll probably be going to Sweden next year as well.
Nice.
So it's slowly more and more we're touching a little bit around the planet.
Yeah.
Sharing what our instructors shared with us, and it's always a lot of fun when you teach a technique and you see somebody's eyes light up, and you remember how you felt when it was showed to you, and just kind of giving back. It's fun. It reminds you of why you started.
Yeah. So do you get a lot of seminars going on here at all?
We bring people in as much as we can. We do 2 Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu camps a year as well.
Okay.
Where we have our senior instructors teach different groups, so it gives the students from a lot of the 16 different Evolution Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu schools, the ones that come to here, it gives them a chance to learn from different instructors as well, because some of us have had different backgrounds coming up.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that there's only one way of doing stuff. I've been lucky enough to work with some of the heads of pretty much the major teams in the world, and they've all showed similar techniques differently.
Yes.
They can't all be wrong.
Yeah.
So there can't only be one way to do it. Otherwise, they would all have taught it the same way. So I think it depends on what you want your second follow-up technique to be if the first one doesn't work, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So your setups are a little bit different, and I don't know. I just love this sport. It's open to do so many different things. It's infinite.
It is.
And you never stop learning.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's so amazing. That's been the one joy I've been having with well, one of many of traveling is not the new techniques. It's seeing just the old techniques in new light, right? I mean, there's like a million different ways to set up and execute an armbar, and the details to each one of them, and just countless possibilities.
But it's
right?
still an armbar.
It is. I remember when I was first kind of just traveling around for fun before I started setting this all up, and I was at another club, and they were doing a similar curriculum to the one that we do under Peter Sauer, and they were showing the T position, but from a different aspect. It was more, I think, more of a wrestler aspect, where it wasn't fully 90, and it was more drive, and I was like, oh, I like these details, and like it's the moves I like, like I usually do when standing, but it's seen in a different light. And I was like, wow, there's a lot of commonalities out there with different schools, even if they'll say that they have their own curriculum, that it's just different setups, different details that I love catching all those details, right? I mean, I don't think I could ever tire of watching people show how to do an armbar, because it's just, there's one of these days, there's, you're gonna see something and you'll be like, oh, you know what? I could have done this grip all this time and I haven't been, Yeah.
The other thing I like about the sport as well is because it's a sport, not a traditional martial art, it's continually evolving. So it doesn't matter how much you know now, it's continually changing. And there's some people that say that the modern jiu-jitsu is the only real jiu-jitsu, that it's killing everybody now. And there are other people saying that modern jiu-jitsu is all junk. You need the basics, you need the foundation. And I think the truth is that you need both. I think if you don't have the basics, then you'll never be able to pull off the modern stuff. And if you don't keep track of what the modern stuff is, you have no clue what they're doing to you. So I think you have to keep an open mind and just kind of embrace everything. Yeah,
and that's exactly what my head instructor, Keith Owen, when I was talking to him about that was he was saying, he doesn't do berimbolos, but he likes to know that's out there and what can be done with those that's out there. Just like he says, like Peter Sauer doesn't do that stuff. He's a traditional guy, but he likes to know what's out there, because how else can you teach what you're teaching to defend against that stuff if you don't know what's out there, right?
If you don't know how it works, how do you kill it?
Yeah, exactly, right.
If you know exactly which piece to pull out where it becomes useless.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's just, okay, if I just take out this one little piece, none of it works anymore. So it's...
Well, yeah, and I remember there was that summer, it was a couple years ago, Keenan Cornelius came out with a video of all the different worm guard stuff.
Yes.
And then I think it was like a month later, someone else came out with the whole video of how to shut the worm guard down. And I was like, oh, what's going to be next month, and it's waiting to see the next...
And then he came out with lapel guard and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. And then, then you're like, wait, that's just a variation of an old technique again, and yeah,
lapel guard's basically a variation of spider guard.
Yeah.
Keenan's very, very, he has a great imagination, and I think that's something that we don't want to stifle. I think if we stick too much to just, it's got to be done exactly this way, you're stopping people from using their imagination and just making little changes. And we're all built differently. We have different injuries, flexibility, body types. The people we do stuff on have different body types, and we need to be able to make those little adjustments to make it work for us. It's got to become a personal...
Yeah.
Your jiu-jitsu is your jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So, the instructor can share their knowledge, but at a certain point, usually around purple belt, I kind of push our students to really develop their game. But up to about purple belt, it's like, okay, you need to learn this first. I don't want them diving for leg locks and never learning how to pass a guard. But at the same point, I don't want them only learning leg locks when they're brown belts, where it's allowed to be used in tournaments.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, we'll say it's like being thrown off the deep end kind of thing. Yeah. Oh geez, what was it? There's a meme about that where it's a big truck with these little wee wheels.
Yeah.
It's like if you're a purple belt and you don't know leg locks, or yeah. So I was a question I've been thinking about. I was wondering the logo.
Yes.
So what does it represent?
A few things. I used to use the logo a lot to help teach. How many times do you hear in a class, okay, we're doing this technique, it's like, oh, but I already know that technique.
Yeah.
So as far as the circle's concerned, I think everything has to go full circle.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you can do the technique without thinking about it, that it's just a natural movement. Do you remember when you first started driving a car and you check your blind spot, and when you checked the blind spot, your car started to change in the other lane? Now, how many things can you do when you're driving a car? You can change the radio station, you can be eating a sandwich while you're driving, do a whole bunch of different things, not texting or anything like that.
Nothing illegal.
But no, so many things that just become second nature. Same thing as walking. You see a kid learning how to walk, keeping their balance. They allow themselves to lose their balance forward, then they catch themselves with the other foot. They regain stability, they allow themselves to fall forward, they catch us. So until you can do everything without thinking about it, you don't know the technique. So you have to come full circle. It has to be a natural, it has to be an automatisme. It has to come out automatically.
Yeah.
So as far as the initial circle is concerned, that's what that's supposed to symbolize. The V here is a 90-degree angle. It's basically your power angle. So a lot of times when we're explaining how to do different sweeps, how to do different things, I like to use that just to emphasize the importance of getting an angle that gives you a lot of power. Get as many muscle groups involved. When you have those proper angles, it'll allow you to have more power than somebody bigger and stronger than you.
Yeah.
The 3 dots is just to symbolize base.
Okay,
3 of the most important things in jiu-jitsu, in my opinion, is balance, base, and posture.
Yeah.
So just trying to re-emphasize little basic things, and I wanted to keep the symbol simple enough that people would recognize it, and just be able to have it mean something as well. And even for the MMA guys, you know, you can also use where you have your, what are your 3 most important components in MMA?
Say distance would be one of them.
Yeah, but okay, so let's say striking, for instance. So stand-up striking. And then wrestling over here. So the wrestling will determine whether you're able to do the striking or not, and the wrestling will determine whether or not you're able to do the grappling.
Okay, yeah.
So you can use the wrestling to keep it standing up, you can use the wrestling to keep it going to the ground, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
So just different areas. As far as distance is concerned, or control, I think as soon as we've made contact, I have some kind of control on your ability to move. But in striking, you have that control without making contact if you have good footwork. So if you can maintain the proper angles, then you'd have the similar control of what we would have either with judo with our grips or wrestling with whatever holds you have on the person. So I just try and get people to make people think a little bit. That's all it really is. And I think angles are really important striking. And when you get down to the ground and you're learning jiu-jitsu, angles are just as important. If I get the right angle on you, you have nothing and you can't attack me, and I can do almost whatever I want. The same is if we stay standing. If I'm able to maintain the right angles, you can't get off anything with any power, and I can just let everything go all day long. So.
Yeah. And I was talking back in my old club. We were talking about that, about how like you see triangles and so many logos with clubs for jiu-jitsu, because you know triangles are everywhere in anything really. But with jiu-jitsu, it's all about those 3 things. Like whether to take someone down, you have to find where that third third point is, where they don't have that base to take them, to sweep them or whatever, right?
For sure.
And I remember talking to someone about standing, and that's one very common thing about most standing is the footwork, the whole triangle movement. It's not just you can be linear for a while, but there's that whole triangle of movement that is in pretty much all standing martial arts, because how else can you
jiu-jitsu would be jiu-jitsu if you didn't have the triangle.
Yeah, exactly.
The triangle has to be present in there somewhere.
Yeah. So and when I saw this, I've seen the logo for a while now, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, I gotta ask this, because it's not like there's a lot of logos out there. You can kind of see where they're getting at, and it's it's like the Gracie Triangle, or it's a mascot of some sort, right? But to me, it was really unique, so I had to ask. Awesome, thank you.
Okay, I hope it made sense to you.
Yeah, definitely. I hope everyone else is watching is making sense to them as well, and they're like, oh, cool, you know. To me, as I travel, one thing that I like to see is, you know, they're different clubs and they're different logos, and you know, I'm sure you know I collect patches, and you know, and so it's kind of cool to see over time. You know, you see a lot of like in martial arts, see a lot of the same influences with that, right? So, but yeah, thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
It's been a pleasure training with you and learning some cool techniques. If you're in the area, definitely drop by, and I'll have links up on the page. And so that's it for now. Until next time, see you on the mats.
I wish you some safe travels and good luck continuing to enjoy this sport that we love so much.
Oh, thank you.
No
Thank
problem.
you. All right. See you next time. Oos.